I'm talking to Mike Wilson, who's Careers Advisor at Newcastle University and Careers Lead for the Northern Deanery. Mike, what is labour market information and why should I be bothered?
Well, labour market information is really around workforce planning in terms of medical specialties. So it's data which looks at historical supply and forecast demand information around how many consultants they need in each individual specialty in terms of an endpoint. Historically, from my experience, medical students and foundation doctors have been relatively unaware that this information exists, so that's one of the reasons why I'm talking to you about it today, because it can be quite useful information to help inform career decisions.
Okay, so how would I use them when I'm thinking about my career?
Well, I think the key thing is that it's only another piece of information. So what we're not talking about is that this information should be used purely for the basis of, well, it's going to be a large growth specialty, therefore I'll apply to that because there's going to be lots of jobs in that. And naturally most people wouldn't do that. But it's a way to kind of think possibly more medium to long term about your career. Let me give you an example. If you were thinking, for example, about going into core medical training, well, you may be justifiably focused on getting into your first training post as a core medical trainee. But if you know a bit more about kind of the workforce planning statistics about what kind of medical specialties are in demand, that might help inform where you may focus, for example, your ST3 specialty, or what you might need to do to kind of prepare for that ST3 specialty if what you are thinking about applying for is really quite competitive. So for example, if you use something like cardiology, which has historically been seen as quite a competitive specialty, and therefore there may not be as many opportunities within that, then by you actually thinking, okay, well, what I need to do in order to get into that is help improve my profile, so I've got more of a chance to get into that. On the other hand, you might look at something, for example, like general practice, where there is a perceived increase in the number of training posts, and therefore you might think, okay, well, that's something that I might want to consider. However, the idea here is that you just use the information to help inform that decision, not to make the decision for you. That they're really there only as forecasts, rather than necessarily this is how it will be.
I've heard a lot about competition ratios. Are they part of the workforce statistics?
They're not part of the workforce statistics, but they are a useful piece of information that you can use. You can look at competition data. It's always retrospective, so it's always looking at the picture last year, and therefore there's always the potential that actually the picture that you're looking at is not the picture that you will face. And so, as one person put it, it's almost like driving with looking in the rearview mirror, so you're not actually looking at what's ahead of you. So competition ratios can help inform, again, how you need to prepare for that, but again, it shouldn't be used in isolation in terms of, well, it's not very competitive to get into that, therefore that's what we'll apply to.
How reliable is this statistical information? Is it something I could really rethink my plans as a result of?
It's reliable in terms of that it's a snapshot of the current information based on census data in terms of the UK population, and also upon the current population in terms of consultant numbers, junior trainees, etc., etc. However, it's the information that's produced is produced on an annual basis, and so it is only a snapshot of a year by year, and it's built in to get more kind of focused as it goes on. It's never an exact science, and it's something which is just to give an overview and a general trend.
So it's something perhaps I should look at more regularly during my career plan?
Absolutely. As with everything, career choices are often a quite organic process, so you don't just make one decision and that's it. You change your mind, you might kind of change emphasis depending on what experience you get on foundation or what experience you get as a specialty trainee or as a medical student. And therefore it's useful to kind of keep up to date with what might be happening in those areas that you are interested in. And so it's something I would recommend that you regularly have a look at.
So where do you recommend I find this information? Where do I find my way to these reports?
Well, the easiest place to find it is on the Medical Careers website, because under that website, under each specialty, there is some information regarding the workforce statistics for each of those specialties. So it's fairly easy to find, and within that it's got the recommendation for the specialty training numbers for 2011, and also got the kind of background information in terms of supply and forecast demand.
There seems to be slightly more emphasis on this type of information nowadays. Why is that, do you think?
I think it's because they're getting much more focused with it. It's improved year on year, and what they're looking at is making sure that people have accurate information in which to kind of plan their careers, so that people from medical students onwards have got access to this information, therefore it can help them. It's not there to just make decisions, as I said before.
Okay. I get the idea that this is giving me information about growth. Is there anything else that's in there that I'd find very useful when planning career decisions?
Well, I think there's always a flip side to growth, and that's where there's areas where there's contraction in terms of the numbers. So if you were to, for example, look at one in particular, which is trauma and orthopedic surgery, if you look at the data from the Centre for Workforce Intelligence this year, they are predicting that in kind of 3, 4, 5 years' time, there will be kind of a meeting of the lines, if you like, between the supply and the demand. And therefore, they have suggested this year that there'll be a reduction in the training numbers to make sure that there's not a surplus of trainees in that area. So that doesn't necessarily mean that if you're considering orthopaedics that you should necessarily think, I'm not going to do orthopaedics. What it would suggest is, okay, well, it might be more competitive to get into that. What do I need to do to prepare for that? And also, if I don't get into that, what might be my plan B? I think the thing to remember is the NHS is a service organisation, and therefore what they are looking for are people who can fill their service demands. And so it's not a case of, I want to be a plastic surgeon, therefore I will be a plastic surgeon, unfortunately.
In a nutshell then, Mike, how would you start using these statistics well in good career planning?
Okay, well, workforce statistics are really another source of information. So labour market information is there to get you to think possibly a bit more long term in terms of what your career choices might be. It shouldn't be used purely to kind of change your mind, but is there maybe think a bit more in the kind of mid-term if, for example, you're applying to a specialty that might be uncoupled and therefore you need to make a decision halfway through or a third of the way through your training into which particular subspecialty you want to go to, for example, medicine. And it also might make you think possibly long-term about what the end point might be, and what the opportunity might be at that end point, and how feasible it will be for you to progress entirely through. And so it's really looking at the environment at the end, but shouldn't again be made be the only thing that makes your decision.
Well, that's been very helpful on behalf of Medical Careers. Thank you very much.
Thank you.